Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take a stack of sources, pull out those really crucial bits of knowledge, and leave you well-informed, maybe with a few surprising facts and, yeah, hopefully a smile. Today, though, we're plunging into something pretty dark. A chilling 77-year-old mystery, one that's not only haunted Los Angeles, but is, really stuck in the American consciousness for generations. Our mission today is to unpack one of America's most infamous unsolved murders, the Black Dahlia case. We'll trace Elizabeth Short's life and her horrific death, explore that whole sensational investigation, look at the key suspects, the theories, and really try to get why this gruesome mystery still captivates us decades later. By the end of this, you should have a really clear picture of what happened, what was just speculation, and what's still, well, totally unknown.
Exactly. And you'll discover how much of this case is just this constant tug of war between verifiable facts and these persistent, often really salacious rumors. We'll follow Elizabeth's journey, from New England out to California. We'll lay out the brutal details of the crime scene itself, and we'll dive into the police investigation, which was intense, but frankly, often pretty problematic. We'll dissect the theories, including those really compelling claims from a former LAPD detective about his own father. But just as important, we'll tackle some of the myths that have really clouded this case, trying to separate truth from, all the hype.
Okay, let's set the scene. Los Angeles, January 15th, 1947. It was a cool morning, apparently, in Lambert Park. A mother and her child are out walking, and they find what they first think is, a mannequin tossed aside. But it wasn't, not at all. It was the brutally mutilated body of a young woman. Naked, scrubbed clean, completely drained of blood. This was Elizabeth Short. Later, the world would know her as the Black Dahlia.
One of the most persistent things you hear about Elizabeth Short was that she was this aspiring actress, always chasing the Hollywood dream. But the reality, based on everything we've looked at, is she had zero known acting credits. No actual acting jobs in LA. And that gap right there between the perception and the truth, that's kind of key to understanding how this whole thing blew up into such a sensation right from the get-go.
Absolutely. She was a real person. Elizabeth Short, born July 29, 1924, in Boston. Third of 5 daughters. Her early life, it wasn't easy. Her dad's car was found abandoned in 1930. The family thought he died. Her mother, Phoebe Mae Sawyer, worked as a bookkeeper, scraping by. And then years later, turns out the father's alive. Just started a new life in California. Imagine that.
Wow, yeah.
And on top of that, Elizabeth had health problems, severe bronchitis, asthma. Doctors suggested warmer climates, so she spent winters down in Miami. Eventually dropped out of high school.
So her health really dictated a lot of her early moves, didn't it? At 18, late 42, she heads out to Vallejo, California to live with this father she'd just found out was alive. But that didn't last. Arguments. She moved out pretty quick, started living this more transient life, I guess. Worked at the base exchange at Camp Cook, that's Vandenberg Space Force Base now. Then, and this is crucial, September 43, she gets arrested in Santa Barbara. Underage drinking. Those fingerprints, they were key to identifying her so fast after the murder.
Yeah, that arrest turned out to be incredibly significant later on. And what I find really telling about her life before the murder is how much it was already shaping this kind of public narrative later. While she was in Florida, she met Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr., Army Air Force officer. Got engaged. She actually proposed from India, but then tragically he died in a plane crash, August 1945.
Oh, man. So she'd already faced some serious loss.
Yeah. She moved to Los Angeles in July 46. Worked as a waitress, bounced around different places, rooming houses, kind of couch surfing with people she knew. It really seems like she's just trying to figure things out. Living a pretty unstructured life, Not the glamorous Hollywood hopeful story we often hear.
Exactly. And those last known movements, they're absolutely critical. January 9th, 1947, she's last seen alive with Robert Red Manley. He was a married salesman she'd been dating. He said he dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel, downtown LA.
The Biltmore.
Yeah. Reports say she used a lobby phone. And then, poof, she just vanished. Nobody saw her for 6 days. Until that horrific discovery.
And what a gruesome discovery it was. Morning of January 15th, Betty Berzinger, the mother out walking with her kid, finds Short's body, vacant lot, Lambert Park. The state of the body. It's just instantly iconic in this really disturbing way. Naked. Severed cleanly at the waist.
Yeah, a hemicorporectomy, basically cut in half between the lower back vertebrae. It takes a shocking level of anatomical knowledge, or maybe just extreme brutality.
Right. And not just that, completely drained of blood, which gave her skin this really pallid white look, and meticulously scrubbed clean.
And the posing. The killer deliberately posed the body. Upper and lower halves about a foot apart. Hands over her head, elbows bent, legs spread, intestines tucked neatly under her buttocks. It's methodical.
Just chilling. And other injuries, too.
Yeah.
The Glasgow smile, those deep cuts from the corners of her mouth towards her ears.
3 inches on one side, 2.5 on the other. Horrific.
Plus cuts on her thighs, her breasts, where pieces of flesh had been removed, and this deep, gaping cut from her navel down to her pubic area.
God. And at the scene, what did they find?
Not much, really.
Yeah.
A heel print near some tire tracks, and a cement sack nearby that had watery blood in it, maybe used to transport her or part of an attempt to dispose of her. Hard to say.
The autopsy then, Dr. Frederick Newbar did it. It just confirmed the sheer brutality, right? Cause of death. Hemorrhage from those awful facial cuts and shock from blows to the head and face.
Yeah, bruising on the scalp, some bleeding around the brain.
And ligature marks, wrists, ankles, neck. Showed she'd been tied up, bound. There was evidence of anal dilation suggesting possible sexual assault, but no sperm was found. So, inconclusive on that front.
And there's that controversial detail, the one not officially in the reports, but always talked about.
Right, the claim about fecal matter in her stomach. Some people jumped on that, suggesting forced ingestion, but it's disputed, not in the official autopsy findings. So could be another piece of, sensationalism. What's just staggering, though, is how quickly she was identified. 56 minutes. The FBI matched her prints from that 1943 arrest.
56 minutes. Wow. So that identification just kicked off an absolute frenzy. LAPD launched this massive manhunt. Hundreds of investigators, deputies, state patrol officers. Huge effort.
Yeah, 750 investigators involved at the peak, apparently.
They searched storm drains, abandoned buildings, the LA riverbed. Anywhere they could think of. Put up a $10,000 reward.
Big money back then.
Huge. But this case almost immediately became this media circus. And that really messed with the investigation, didn't it?
Oh, profoundly. The media dubbed her the Black Dahlia almost instantly. Maybe after that movie, The Blue Dahlia. Or because she supposedly liked black clothes. Or maybe drugstore staff coined it. Nobody's totally sure.
The Herald Express even called it the werewolf murder at first.
Right. And the sensationalism was just off the charts. The Examiner, the Herald Express, they flat out fabricated details, claimed she was tortured for hours, stuff like that. They even called Elizabeth's mother pretending she'd won a beauty contest just to get personal details. Then they dropped the bomb that she'd been murdered.
That's predatory. Awful.
It is. And they notoriously held back information from the police just to get scoops, actively hindering the investigation for headlines.
And the killer, or someone claiming to be, seemed to just eat this up, right? Taunting the press.
Totally played into it. Someone called the Examiner, claiming to be the killer, then mailed them a package. Inside, Short's birth certificate, photos, business cards, and an address book. Mark Hansen's name was in it.
Mark Hansen, okay. Remember that name.
Yeah, and crucially, all these items were wiped clean with Vaseline, deliberately destroying any potential prints or DNA.
So this person knew what they were doing.
Absolutely. Then more letters came. A handwritten note promising to turn himself in. Never happened, of course.
Nah.
Another letter, made from cut and pasted words, saying Dahlia killing was justified. There was even what looked like a suicide note found later, signed Black Dahlia Avenger. This direct communication, it fueled the fire, made a huge sensation, but complicated everything for the police.
So you've got this media frenzy, a killer possibly playing games, contaminated evidence. What else went wrong?
Well, the sheer volume of false leads was overwhelming. Over 60 false confessions just in the initial investigation. Yeah. And over 500 total over the years. Think of the police time wasted on that.
Unbelievable. And what about Mark Hansen? His address book was in that package.
He was interviewed, yeah, but apparently not investigated very deeply, even though there were inconsistencies in his story, and people said he had this, obsession with Short.
Seems like a drop ball.
It certainly looks that way in hindsight. By 1949, a grand jury actually slammed the LAPD for how they handled things. Inadequacies, mishandling evidence, even an illegal interrogation attempt.
And Robert Redmanley, the last guy known to see her.
He was investigated pretty thoroughly, passed polygraph tests multiple times apparently, and was eventually cleared. Seems he was just the unlucky guy who saw her last.
So it really was a perfect storm of obstacles for the investigation.
Truly was. Which leads us right into the suspects and theories that have kept this case buzzing for, well, almost 80 years now. Probably the most compelling theory, the one that gets the most attention today, revolves around George Hodel.
Ah, yes, the doctor. And this gave him his own son, right?
Yeah.
Steve Hodel, who used to be an LAPD detective himself.
Exactly. Steve, after his father died, went through his belongings, found photos he believes are of Elizabeth Short. He also pointed to his father's surgical training. George Hodel was a doctor, which could explain the precision of the hemicorporectomy, that clean bisection.
That makes sense. The skill involved.
Right. And Steve also found a receipt for a cement bag, supposedly similar to the one found near the body.
Okay, that's a lot of circumstantial stuff lining up. But
Mm.
wasn't there something even more chilling?
Oh, yeah. The wiretaps. Back in 1950, George Hodel was a suspect. The LAPD bugged his house,
Yeah.
and the audio, it's incredibly disturbing. He's recorded saying something like, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's dead."
Whoa.
And then he apparently adds, "Killed her. Maybe I did kill my secretary."
He actually said that on a police wiretap.
According to his son and the transcripts that have surfaced, yes. Given his surgical skill and that recording, it's powerful stuff.
So why wasn't he charged?
Well, he moved away shortly after to the Philippines and lived there until he died. He was never formally charged in his lifetime. But significantly, the LA County District Attorney's Office said back in 2004 that based on Steve Hodel's findings and the old files, there probably would be enough evidence to indict George Hodel if he were still alive.
That's huge. A sort of posthumous near indictment. It makes you wonder how someone with that kind of suspicion around them just gets away.
It really does. Corruption, incompetence, maybe just the difficulty of proving it beyond a reasonable doubt back then. Hard to say.
Are there other major suspects or theories that have gained traction over the years?
Definitely. The case keeps drawing new researchers. Another key name is Leslie Dillon. British author Pi Eatwell focused on him in her 2017 book, Black Dahlia, Red Rose. Dillon was a bellhop, interestingly, and a former mortician's assistant.
Mortician's assistant. Okay, that raises flags with the body's condition.
Right. Eatwell's theory connects Dillon to Mark Hansen, the guy whose address book was sent to the press. She suggests Dillon might have killed short for Hansen, maybe because Hansen was infatuated with her and she rejected him, or something along those lines.
So a murder for hire type scenario.
Potentially. Eatwell points out that Dillon seemed to know details about the crime that weren't public knowledge, like a specific rose tattoo Short had, which was apparently cut out from her thigh and found placed inside her vagina.
Good Lord. Details the police kept quiet.
Supposedly. Eatwell also linked Dillon to a place called the Astor Motel, where a room was reportedly found covered in blood and fecal matter on the very morning Short's body was discovered.
Okay, that sounds potentially significant. Why wasn't Dillon charged then?
Eatwell alleges police corruption may be ties protecting Hansen, but it's important to say this theory is contested. Another researcher, Larry Harnish, strongly disputes Eatwell's findings. He cites DA files that apparently place Leslie Dillon in San Francisco around the exact time of the murder.
Ah, so conflicting evidence again. The plot thickens or maybe just gets muddier.
Exactly. It really highlights how complex and full of contradictions this case remains, always fact versus fiction.
Speaking of which, weren't there also theories linking this to other famous cases? Like the Cleveland torso murders. That always pops up.
Yeah, that connection was speculated on early because of the dismemberment aspect. Similarities, you know. But there were key differences. Short wasn't decapitated, which was a signature of the torso murderer, and the timing was off in time. The Cleveland murders were mostly in the 30s. This was 47.
Right, nearly a decade later.
Yeah. So LAPD investigators looked into it, but eventually discounted a direct link. And just as important as debunking case links is debunking the myths about Elizabeth Short herself. These things still circulate constantly.
Like the aspiring actress thing we mentioned.
Exactly. And the idea that she was a prostitute or a call girl, there's simply no credible evidence for that, despite what the tabloids screamed back then. It seems she just knew a lot of men, dated around, maybe accepted help, but wasn't selling sex.
And what about those really personal, kind of invasive rumors
Okay.
about her body?
Ah, right. The myth that she couldn't have sex because of some congenital defect, sometimes called infantile genitalia. The autopsy did note her uterus was small, but otherwise she was described as anatomically normal, and investigators found men who claimed they had slept with her.
So, another distortion, blown out of proportion.
Seems like it. And the rumor she was a lesbian also seems to have sprung from misinterpretations or just, gossip. This constant battle between the facts we have and all the speculation, the often really damaging fiction that really defines how we remember, or maybe misremember, Elizabeth Short.
So, where does all this leave us today, this case? It's still officially unsolved. but its impact is just undeniable, isn't it? One of the most brutal, most famous unsolved murders in American history. It still resonates culturally.
Massively. And it had real-world consequences, too. The public outcry was so huge that California actually introduced its first sex offender registry bill in February 1947, like weeks after the murder. A direct result.
Wow, I didn't know that. Direct legislative impact.
Yeah. And culturally, forget about it. James Ellroy's novel, The Black Dahlia, Brian De Palma's film adaptation, it pops up in American Horror Story. It's just embedded in our crime lore.
It's a tragedy that's become this powerful, dark symbol.
Which brings us back to that question, why? Why does this specific case still grip us so tightly after all this time?
It's a great question. I think maybe part of it is the unsolved nature. We crave closure.
Yeah, the lack of an answer is frustrating. The LAPD still gets tips, apparently, but still no arrests, ever. Elizabeth Short's mother, Phoebe, she moved to Oakland just to be near her daughter's grave. Died in 1992. Never knew who did it.
Just heartbreaking.
It is. In the case, it really does highlight so many things, doesn't it? Media sensationalism, the limits and sometimes failures of police work back then, and just that deep human need for answers when something so awful happens. It makes you ask, what happens when an investigation just runs out of road? When the lifeline dries up? It's a stark reminder, isn't it? That sometimes the questions just hang there. The brutality, the mystery, the media's role, it all created this perfect storm for an enduring, haunting narrative.
Yeah. The Black Dahlia, it's become this symbol, hasn't it? Hollywood's dark side, the vulnerability of people chasing dreams, and maybe our fascination, yours and mine included, says something about us. Our own need to understand the truth, even when it's confronting something really depraved.
Could be.
And one last thought to leave you with. In today's world, with DNA, with advanced forensics, could a crime like this, with this level of mystery and maybe police difficulty, ever truly go unsolved again? Or have things changed too much?